One of the concepts that will really help your game, and actually just one of the concepts that you should be learning very early on in your chess understanding, is the value of a well-placed knight. So if you like content like this and you want to see more of it, please hit that subscribe button and click on your notification icon. Now, when I was younger, I was shown this game, and the point of the game was actually just to impress upon me the absolute value of just having a really well-placed knight in the position. And a lot of players were shown this game in their early careers, actually. It was a game played between Paul Morphy and Anderson. And the game went like this. It was, knight c6, knight d4, e6, and then Morphy immediately plays this move, knight b5. So this is the thing that people were trying to get across to me is, Morphy, this guy who just loved getting tempo, after tempo after tempo, was spending a lot of time with his knight because he wanted to plant his knight on this weak square. He wanted to put it on the d6 square. And of course, if the knight ever actually gets to d6 and can't get dislodged, it would be super powerful. Or even if we can exchange it for this dark squared bishop and then the dark squares become weak, that would also be a good thing. So d6 got played, bishop f4 got played, e5, bishop back to e3, and then pawn to f5 got played by Anderson. So this is the part of the game where I really learned and I really started understanding the value of just having a very strong and well-placed knight somewhere in the middle of the board, especially if it's occupying a weak square, like if it's occupying d5 or f5 or d6, or one of these huge kind of critical squares in the middle of the board where it can have a lot of power. Paul Morphy played knight c3 here. And then after f4, he just let his bishop hang, and he just played knight d5. And he's got these amazing knights in the position. And that was absolutely worth giving up his bishop on the e3 square. So after f takes e3, we had knight c7, and already we can see that we're in very serious trouble. If king d7, we're going to be checkmating in 1. So if king d7, queen g4 is in fact mate. So king f7 was forced in that game, and then Morphy played a very good move. He played queen f3. Not quite as good as apparently the computer liked knight takes to h8, but queen f3 was decent. Knight f6, bishop to c4. And then we have knight d4 got played. We have knight f6. And Anderson played king h5. And Morphy had a really easy win here. He could have played queen h5. And then after king takes knight, he had knight e8 check. And then you apparently have to sacrifice the queen because obviously king e7, queen f7 is mate. Morphy played a little bit differently in the game. He actually played f takes e3. And he got lucky because Anderson could have played queen c7 and equalized, but instead Anderson played knight c2, and Morphy ended up still winning the game after king d2 because Anderson is getting mated after knight takes a1, and then I guess either knight d5 followed by king e6, queen f5 is mate in this situation. Also, I think rook f1 should lead to mate. I think they both lead to mate. Rook f1, they can throw in bishop f5 as a little extra move, but eventually we're still getting there. But that game, more than any other, really impressed on me the value of a well-placed knight. But I saw this happen in another example as well, a more modern example. I saw this happen in the game Kasparov versus Anatoly Karpov, played in the World Championship match in 1990. And it was a very complex position. It was a Ruy Lopez, and they start going into the Ruy Lopez main line. And of course, Karpov plays his favorite variation, beginning with bishop b7 and rook e8, kind of targeting this pawn. Bishop f8, all these moves get played. a4, bishop c2. This is all still relatively kind of book theory today. I'm going to go ahead and turn the engine off just so you can appreciate the game without looking at the engine assessment. But we have e takes d, c takes d, knight b4, bishop to b1, c5, d5, and Kasparov defends the center of the board. And then we have some interesting kind of knight maneuvering here. Kasparov plays knight h2 because he knows this exchange is going to happen, and he wants to plant his knight on the g4 square. So he plays knight h2, we have king h8, we have b3, so now we're trying to develop to the diagonal, the same diagonal as the king. Takes, c4, Karpov starts getting some counterplay with his c-pawn, bishop to b2, we have a couple of exchanges, and then he takes here. So this is where Kasparov does something really cool with this knight that just made this journey to the h2 square. The destination is going to be f5. He's going to get this knight to f5. And here's the way that he did it. First he played rook g3, putting pressure on the g7 square. So things have to start getting defended. So rook e6, and now this is the idea. Knight g4. He's threatening to come in with knight to h6, and there wasn't a great way to stop it. Karpov kind of fell for it. He played queen e8, and then we have knight to h6. So here's the point, is after knight h6, if we turn on the engine, so now you can kind of appreciate it, black doesn't really have rook h6 because knight d6 wins everything. So we're hitting here, we're hitting here, we're hitting here, and you can see the computer assessment is plus 3 points for white. Karpov went ahead and decided to try to play something else. He just tried to stop everything up. He played the move pawn to c3 to try to, get rid of this diagonal. And then Kasparov said, okay, you can have this bishop, but I'm going to move this knight back to this super powerful square. And you can see that the computer completely agrees with Kasparov. After knight f5, and then bc2, white is completely winning. And actually, Kasparov did follow up correctly with the move queen to g4. I think we all kind of forget just how good Kasparov really was. He was very good at executing his advantages to maximum potential. But look at this position. White is actually down a piece. White has 3 pieces, black has 1, 2, 3, 4, and he has a very dangerous looking pawn on b2. If we were to just count up the material, we would say, hey, black should have a winning advantage here. But clearly, white is the one that's dominating this position, and it's because he has not just 1, but 2 very powerful knights, but especially this knight on the f5 square. This knight is a monster. So if you just want to see how this game continued, it went queen g4, bishop to c8, and then we have queen h4, and now, unfortunately, there's just really not a whole lot of good moves here. Karpov tried to start blocking things up. He's okay with trading for this knight for his rook, because just getting rid of this knight just became a priority for Karpov. So he decided to play rook h6. Now the computer gives king g8, but of course this isn't much better. I mean, the computer's giving plus 9 for white. It says white's winning no matter what black does. So Karpov actually played rook h6, and then Kasparov did take, and then Karpov got a chance to get rid of that, but of course Kasparov didn't just have 1 very well-placed knight. Kasparov had 2. So he plays king h2, so now that knight is mobile. And then he flies in with the knight, and now I guess black's best chance is to sacrifice his queen for this rook just to get a check. And, queen f6, rook e8, bishop to f5, and then Kasparov wins with a pseudo-queen sacrifice, although he would have had a faster mate beginning with the move knight f7. He found the move queen h6, knight f7, and then bishop to f5, and the rest of black's material disappeared, because now he has to block with this queen, and then everything else falls. And as you can see, the computer is just showing this is mate in 16 from here, and white will go on to win. But this is an extremely valuable lesson that you need to learn, is the importance of very well-placed knights. Knights on the f5 square or knights on the d5 square can be extremely powerful, and these 2 games are just a really good example of that. But it's something that you want to look for in your own games, and it's something you want to try to do in your own games. And if you can develop this understanding of that it is sometimes worth sacrificing material to get your knight to a very, very good square, then it'll really help your results a lot, and it'll really help your game, and it'll help you win more games, get more points, and get a higher rating. So anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you learned something new about chess. Thank you very much for watching.